Hi, welcome to the Andrew Buckle video tutorial on Photoshop 221 with a new feature, Colorize in the neural filters. So where is this? I'm just going to quickly go back out of this one, but you can see there's the original black and white, sort of black and white, and there's the colour. So I'm just going to cancel that. So you've got original image. What you can do, go to Filter, Neural Filters. Neural filters comes up, takes a few seconds to load in, so because it's loading quite a few other things, all these filters, skin smoothing, etc, etc. But there's a beta one here, Colorize. Unfortunately, every time you go into it, quite often it seems to always go back to that, which is a pity. However, just select that, Colorize. So once you've got it on, you've got all these options over here, and there's a whole range of different, you can see straight away the effect. Now this effect does take a few seconds to process. It will just whir around as it goes off to the web or whatever and does various processing. But you've got a range of different things and you can change things. So you can change there. So as soon as you do that, you could rid of that. Of course, I'm not actually changing them particularly, so it doesn't matter. So let's just put those on and maybe go for red. And you can see what happens. It becomes more red, strange enough. Cyan becomes more, obviously, cyan, bluish. And you can see as you go backwards and forwards. Now I'm not going to change those. I'm just going to go with the default. In fact, I'm not going to go with any of those. You can see you can change the colours. What you can also do, you've got focal points. I'm just going to, that'll be another thing in a second. So you've got focus colour. You can vary the scene colour. It doesn't really make much of a change. It's very subtle whenever these things. Focus colour. Fact, hardly a change, but you can change saturation. And again, as soon as you do that, you can see push that up, and you've got here saturation there. Tick mark is turned on. You don't have to do that. So as soon as you touch it, it will put it on. So you just go over there. Blue. I'm just going to turn that off now. And saturation, you can go the other way, which I think is a bit pointless since it ends up basically being black and white, which is much the same as obviously where you started with. So it's probably best to push up the colour. Personally, I think it's just nice just to look a little bit more of the thing. However, there are a number of other options. There's also reduce colour artifacts. You can always reduce that down. I think sometimes if you push it up, I noticed a lot of these ones work sort of okay, but to be honest, well, some odd colour bits over there, I guess. But personally, when I flick through this backwards and forwards, I really can't see much difference. I guess if you zoom in and you look at it very, very clearly, you probably could see some slight changes, but it's very subtle. And you also got noise reduction. Now this one is slightly more of what's named, so you can push that up. And what happens, it becomes just a little bit more smudgy, a little bit more blurred, sort of not so, I don't really like the noise. I very rarely change it. I've always, if I'm going to do noise reduction, I probably would do it outside already, so I'm just going to reduce it down. So I very rarely touch that. Retain original image colours. Not certain what use that is actually at all, since obviously that's for colour images. I guess that is useful for colour images, but it's not any use for black and white. So you can ignore that. What you can also do, you've got here profiles. Now this is probably the most useful, I think. Personally, I've taken a bit of time to get down there, but this one is probably the nicest one. Well, actually, no, the next one's more useful. But you've got here, none. You've got retro high contrast. So you've got high contrast, that one, blue, brown. To be honest, again, quite a few of those are very subtle, because to me, that doesn't look blue-brown particularly. And there's one down here that I really love, retro faded. Some it does, sometimes it doesn't. Retro denim. Maybe over time they will add more, sometimes more effective ones. But I have to say, some of these really light yellow, very, very subtle. But again, you can vary this. You've got profile intensity. Let's just push it up. But even there, doesn't really make that any more yellow. Retro faded. I suppose so. Well, it doesn't look to me particularly faded. I'm certain that, I suppose that's why it says beta. Maybe there's some quirks. Maybe when people, there is actually, are you satisfied? This is the key thing. Very useful. Are you satisfied with the result? well, you can always put a comment back. And this sort of feature will be brilliant in all of the Photoshop filters and other functions, actually, because it would be nice to be able to report back and say, well, no, this doesn't work in the way that I think it should work. I'm always putting that sort of thing. I think this should be done. This should be so. Okay, so you can reduce that down, and you can see the result sort of ends up much like without doing the profiles at all. You can always go back to none, but they are quite nice actually to go through those. And like I say, you can click yes or no, and you can put your comments as well as send the image to them so they can look and see what they can do further. So you've got output. Now this is super useful. Output is brilliant because what you got new layer, you got current layer. So this is current layer. I would assume is like the traditional way of doing it. So apply the effect, current layer, saves it to the current layer, and that's a destructive effect. Bang, it's gone. You applied this effect, which maybe of course is what you want. I must admit, I don't think that deck chair was green. Personally, I think that would have been it might have been deck chairs. Okay, maybe it'd been sort of in the sun for a lot. Maybe it's gone like. However, what you can also get is a duplicated layer. So it's created basically the current layer, but it's duplicated it, and then applied the effect. And then you've got duplicate layer masked, where you obviously brings in a mask element into the thing as well as the duplicate, which is quite useful. New layer. Personally, I find the new layer one pretty decent. Basically produces a new layer with the effect. Only that effect. So anything that's not, it's actually quite weird. You end up with this sort of unusual sort of layer that's not. And you've got smart filter, which of course means it turns into a smart object, and you've got smart filter, which you can change at a later point, which is super useful as well. But let's go with what it is, new layer. And then you can apply it. And of course I could apply some of these other ones as well. And then you've got this lovely converted image. Now I'm certain Mum would have loved, in fact, fortunately, didn't get to see these photos converted into colour. But of course, she probably would have turned around and said, no, that top was probably blue or something green or something. No idea. Whoops, knocking the mic. Now I can safely say the sand is sort of looking like sand. I guess that's the one good thing about this. They obviously know what sand looks like. So sand is sort of got that colour. So it's a really useful feature. And any retro picture, and I've tried it with quite a lot, and some really come out really well. Some not so effective, and I'm always a bit scared. And I would love to see some other changes to it, like the fact that you got the. I had one where I got stripes on my shirt, and I got blue. It comes out blue. Well, it was originally blue, but then it comes out red in their one. Unfortunately, you can't change that. So it would be nice if you could selectively, but you can't. However, mere quibbles on these things. So you've got that effect, and you can see what happens if you apply it, and you can always apply it again. So you've got neural filters, just apply it again, basic standard sort of thing. It will run it, apply it like that. Now you can see this. Let's just come over here and layers. This is the key one. So you can see layers. So you've got another layer, and you can always remove the old one. And sometimes you get some weird gaps in it. So it hasn't processed everything. There's some you can see some very odd sort of patches there. So possibly best to keep both. That's why sometimes the duplicate one maybe is better, I don't know. But however, with this, and you can go through, of course, blending modes. So not only can you run through that, you can run through all those. Some obviously are not very good. Difference, you can see the difference problem. Hue saturation, darker colour. Actually, colour burn. I think that looks quite nice. And of course you can change your opacity, so you can always tweak it slightly, just to give a bit of colour into that. Whole variety of different ones. Now, I think that's a great feature. And of course, what you can do, you've got as a layer, you can always go to filter, and you can, of course, blur that layer. So Gaussian blur, let's just blur that layer. And of course, you've still got the underlying layer. That's obviously normal now, but I've got dark and multiply, colour burn, and you can see, you can create a whole range of different. So you've got the colour, you've got the blur, as well as like linear burn. You can create some very unusual retro images using this as well. So again, undo all that. So I've got that image. Well, what you can do, and this is going to be a quick one, obviously, select and subject. Now, this doesn't make a very good attempt, this one. I don't know why. Select and subject. What it does, it brings in the shadow, where you've got a little bit of shadow there. Oh, okay, that's acceptable. But what you can do, you can use your filter with that. So filter and neural filters. Now I've just obviously quickly create it again. So go into it and you'll see it loading again. Now, if you, that's the point, better quickly show, select there. Now you'll find in some of these things, you have to download them. It's very quick. You go to that depth blur. So if I go to that depth blur, you've got to download it before you can use it. I guess that's just so you can update things, that they can update it. So basically, it's if you want to download the latest one. Now, I'm not going to use that one. I'm just going to go to Color Blur. What I'm going to do, you can see that selection around it. Now, the rest of the image is completely untouched. So what you can do, you can quickly create that, and you can see you've got this obviously picture, the sand and everything is untouched. And of course, you've got this weird thing now, you've got a layer. Now, this will be useful in all of the filters personally. So you've got the layer there, and then of course you could move that or use the duplicate option, and you get the same sort of thing. There's a whole range of different options you can do with this. So I think it's a real nice feature. So you've got that. And again, you've still got the fade options and the other options. So let's just undo that. What you can also do, you've got channels. So channels, and then go to filters and neural filters there. So there, but you can't. However, there's always a workaround about this. If you want to do that, you can use the channels, because you can always go to this right side menu and you can split the channels. Splitting channel means you end up with a red channel, a green channel and a blue channel, a file for each of those. And what you can do then is you can apply the neural filter to the color channels that way. Not ideal, it's not an ideal solution, but that's just to show you can get around the issue that you can't access things. And it's to be not surprised, since it's obviously Colorize, all those sort of things, it's going to cause problems having to do it on a different channel. And of course, what you can do, again, you've got selections. You could select different parts of the image, apply different color for each of them if you want to apply, maybe create a selection like that over here. Those sort of things. Or maybe create an action. You can always go to Window, Actions. You can apply the effect. Let's just go Neural Filters, apply the effect. And of course, once you've done that, what you can do, you can always go to Image Adjustments, and you can always then go to Hue and Saturation, and you can just tweak it slightly. So if you think, you know what, it's slightly, maybe not really, that's not the best colour to beat. Back in the 50s and 40s and those things, no one was worried about sitting out in the sun, which is obviously an issue. So you got a whole load of options here. Filters again, select that. And again, once you're happy with the thing, you can always go flatten image. So it all becomes one single layer. But image, adjustments, and you can of course always put it back in white. And now that's an interesting one. And I will just quickly open another image, and this one, Roxy. What you can do, you can go to black and white. So you can turn a colour image into black and white. So what you can do, let's just go down here to adjustments, black and white. And of course you can tweak that. So once you've done that, you can now go and colorize it. And you think, oh, it's going to colorize it exactly correctly. Well, no, it doesn't, which is actually the best thing, because if it did, it would be very disappointing. If it turned around and said, oh, no, that's a color image, I'm just going to put it back to what it was. What you can do, you can go to Filter and Neural Filter. And again, go down here to Colorize, put it back on again. Always seems to be a pity that it doesn't remember that it should be on. And it does, you got the image comes back. Sort of looks like, but the lips and the thing is slightly different. Now I'm going to go for a slightly different option. I'm going to go for a duplicate layer this time. And you can see what happens. You've got this effect here. Well, what you can also do, of course, you can always duplicate this as well. So you can create combinations. So click OK, and then go, you know what, I want that black and white again. So go down there, Image, Adjustments, and black and white. And again, you can tweak this if you want to tweak it, change like that. And I actually think, because this is a poser design, I always find the poser images fine. I mean, you can mess around with the lighting and things, and I'm not a 3D expert. I have to say, spend hours working out all the various things to get exactly the sort of thing that I'm really looking for in an image. But what this is actually quite handy, because what you can do now is, of course, go to filters, and I'm not going to use one of the different modes. I'm just going to quickly apply it again, very quickly. And I'm going to convert it again. And now you can see what the result is. You've got this slightly more, somehow it actually looks more realistic, as much as a poser model can ever really look realistic. 3D models are never going to, well, they might do eventually, I suppose. What you got, darken, you can go for multiply, and you can vary. So you can just go through and you can see by changing the colours, or maybe opacities, you can just tweak these things and go to that one and change that. So there's a whole load of different colour options suddenly, because of that Colorize feature, suddenly opened up to you. And again, you can go there and overlay, maybe not that one, soft light, screen, darken, linear burn. So you can create some very interesting colour combinations. And of course, once you're finished with the whole thing, you can, and also what you can do, you can go to that layer. You don't have to keep it the same. So you can always go to filter, and you've got blur, Gaussian blur, maybe apply a blur effect to the whole thing. And you can see you get this nice sort of thing. Go back up there, layer, and flatten image. You've got a nice little blurry effect there, maybe with a bit of, but you've got that design there. And of course, we can always go to, let's go for image auto tone, slight change there. And of course, you can always tweak it. So you can always go to image vibrance and create a very garish golden effect. Maybe it's a sunset or something like that. Well, I hope you found this tutorial of interest. I will be adding more tutorials about the neural filters and probably Colorize as well. I think Colorize has a lot of possible things there. I think scrape the surface of the filter. So I think it's one of those ones that I'm going to sort of, obviously we'll be coming back to and looking again. Because I'm certain there's going to be some other things, maybe with type, with shapes, maybe with gradients. You can create some interesting possible effects there. So hope you found this of interest. Always adding new tutorials near enough every day. Also, if you've got any comments, always appreciate it. Put some comments, please. Sort of thinking, you know, you did this wrong, you did this right. Please let me know. Always appreciate it. A dislike or like as well. Always nice as well. Thank you much.